Part 140. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1391. Warcraft, this is definitely a warcraft. Zuyun was horrified. The moment the flying giant fish opened its mouth, the breath flowing in its mouth was very similar to the monster he first encountered in Duanxian River. However, the aura of the flying giant fish is slightly weaker, but this does not mean that the strength of the flying giant fish will be lower than that of the monster. I don't know how long it has been dormant in this wild sea. With a mouthful of sharp teeth that oozed terror, Zuyun didn't even stop, and flashed far away with the thunder escape technique. Crack! The flying giant fish bit the air with one mouthful, and a red light suddenly appeared in the fish's eyes, and then it locked onto Zuyun's position. Call! Zuyun exhaled a breath of turbid air, stretched out his hand to draw the talisman, and at the same time shouted, "Feng Tian, burn him!" With a command, Feng Tianyan immediately turned into a ball of fire and jumped towards the flying giant fish. Ouch! The giant flying fish made a strange cry, opened its mouth again, and bit into Feng Tianyan. Humph, it's too late. Zuyun gave a low shout, and the heavenly talisman in his hand suddenly took shape. With a word fall, the strokes spread out and entangled towards the flying giant fish. Roar! How can we underestimate the power of the heavenly talisman? The flying giant fish never expected that Zuyun would have such a mysterious method. The sky talisman was a talisman from the fairy world. Even if it had been inherited from its ancestors, it would not recognize this talisman. But instinctively, it felt the danger of the Tianfu. The flying giant fish was about to turn around and run away, but at this moment, Feng Tianyan, which was bitten in its mouth, suddenly exploded. Bang! Feng Tianyan exploded like explosives. The flying giant fish paused for a moment, and the strokes of the pendulum word were already wrapped around it. It seemed as if countless heavy stones were tied to its body, and it fell downwards. Heaven-gathering thunder talisman. Zuyun's eyes narrowed, and he drew talismans with both hands at the same time. The power of chaos turned into pure thunder power, and talismans rose into the sky one after another. Zillaboom! The thunder spirit power disappeared in a flash, and then in the sky, dark clouds instantly turned into the sea, and countless thunder snakes jumped towards the flying giant fish. Boom! 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 The heaven-gathering thunder talisman is an intermediate-level talisman, but the giant flying fish possesses demonic energy, and the power of the sky thunder triggered by it has a natural restraint effect on it. Countless thunder lights sizzled on the flying giant fish, like thousands of thunder snakes whipping its body. Black scales were flying, and the giant flying fish screamed in agony. It ignored the fangs that were exploded by the burning sky flames and dived into the sea with a shrill scream. Want to run? It's too late. Zuyun sneered and took out a thunder spirit bead from his arms. The Jushin Lei talisman is just an appetizer. Subject to the grade of the talisman, although it can cause damage, it is extremely limited. The real killer move is the Thunder Lingzhu. Zuyun held the bead in one hand, and held out two fingers with the other hand. His eyes were filled with light, and he opened his mouth and spat out 4 words. Sword Chi, release it. Boom! Zuyun actually directly quoted the extremely pure thunder spirit power in the thunder spirit bead. There was another loud roar in the sky. The original thunder-gathering talisman ended and those dark clouds should disperse. But because of the Thunder Lingzhu, Zuyun's sword moves actually resonated in the sky. Within the Thunder Spirit Pearl, the extremely majestic Thunder Spirit energy was drawn out by Zuyun, and then turned into the sword energy in his hand, forming an extremely thick Thunder Sword energy and stabbing towards the flying giant fish. Roar! The flying giant fish was heartbroken. The previous heaven-gathering thunder talisman made it somewhat lucky. Although the thunder spirit power was terrifying, it had no worries about its life. But at this time, The spiritual power erupted from the thunder spirit pearl aroused the innate terror in its heart. At this moment, it felt regretful as to why it flew into the sky to seek death. The thunder sword energy instantly swallowed up the flying giant fish, turned it into dust, and dispersed along with the thunder light. And this kind of movement made all the sea monsters in the sea tremble with fear and stopped one after another. Fen Tian, are you okay? Fen Tianyan returned to Zhu Yun. He took a look and asked softly. It doesn't matter, I have no body, and I let it bite me on purpose. Fen Tianyan said very easily. Zhu Yun smiled and said, it seems that this flying giant fish has consumed the thunder spirit power of one of my thunder spirit beads. If there is a stronger deep sea monster behind this, I'm afraid. Master, there is no need to worry, Fen Tianyan said, this flying giant fish is probably the vanguard of the deep sea monster, and it came to test us, but Master, are you testing the deep sea monster? You noticed it, Zhu Yun raised his eyebrows, slightly surprised. Being able to think of this shows that Fen Tianyan's spiritual intelligence has matured a lot. Perhaps Jingping Fairy Kingdom and his party also restored a lot of his memories. I have followed Master for a long time, and I know to some extent how Master behaves. Master, are we waiting here next? Fen Tianyan complimented and turned to look at the sea. I saw that the sea monsters were looking up at them, but they had no intention of fighting. It turns out that these sea monsters were forced to come here by the giant monster from the deep sea. Let's wait and see. Zhu Yun replied lightly, but couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It would be great if the water incarnation was still there. Not only could his strength be restored more, but he could also enter the water and observe it carefully. Although he can still use the water escape technique now, the problem is that it is not as easy to use as it was before the water incarnation was condensed. Master, look over there. At this time, Fen Tianyan suddenly reminded him, and Zhu Yun also immediately felt the surging demonic energy in the distance. He quietly used the shattering void spiritual eye technique, and suddenly saw billowing black mist coming from the sea in the distance. The giant monster of the deep sea. The void-breaking spiritual eye technique was unable to see through the black mist, just as the monster's body could not be seen clearly in the Duanxian River. When Zhu Yun was hesitating whether to use the divine eye technique, the black mist suddenly scattered in all directions. Gone. He frowned, but murderous intent came suddenly, coming from all directions and covering him. Not good. Zhu Yun felt a chill in his heart, let out a low cry, and quickly fled away. However, it is a step too slow. A ray of demonic energy actually appeared from under his feet, turned into a big black hand, grabbed his ankle tightly, and pulled him towards the sea water. Owner! Fen Tian shouted suddenly, and was about to step forward to help, using the supreme sky fire to burn off the black hand, but he did not expect that a mass of black energy appeared out of thin air around him. Fen Tianyan's figure stagnated, but the black energy liquefied again and turned into a ball of black water, preventing Fen Tian's rescue operation. Damn it, get out of here! Fen Tianyan roared, and the flame suddenly exploded, but he could not break through the water curtain formed by the black water. He could only watch Zhu Yun being dragged into the sea area where all the monsters were focused. Roar! All the demons roared together, the sound resounding throughout the sky, but in an instant, Zhu Yun's figure was overwhelmed by the demons. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1392. Call out! Call out! Call out! Fen Tianyan was extremely anxious, but several rays of light struck him. It turned out that Fairy Xianxia also discovered what had happened here and rushed to help. But in the end, he was a step too late and could only help Fen Tianyan to get out of trouble. This black liquid could stop Fen Tianyan, but it could not stop Fairy Xianxia, who was in the tribulation period. When all the black water was shattered, Fen Tianyan immediately rushed towards the sea. Skyfire, no. Fairy Xianxia was stunned and quickly stepped forward to stop him. With a flash of her body, she was already standing in front of Fen Tianyan. "Xianxia, get out of the way." The tip of Fen Tianyan's fire turned into a face, and his facial features were twisted together, making him look extremely angry. "The master is very capable and has the immortal soul hammer with him. If we go down hastily, we may ruin his good deeds." Looking at the sea monster below, Fairy Xianxia felt uncertain, especially the giant flying fish from before, which also made her intimidated. Who knows if there is a more powerful deep-sea monster lurking among these sea monsters? Tianhuo, since the master has gone down, let's act according to the situation above. If he fights with the giant monster of the deep sea, we can also rush to help from above and attack the giant monster of the deep sea from both sides. Fen Tianyan calmed down and knew that Fairy Xianxia's method was the most correct choice at present. "Okay, I'll listen to you for now." "Don't worry," Fairy Xianxia said with bright eyes, "whether I can ascend depends on my master. Like you, I don't want anything to happen to him." As the words fell, a huge explosion suddenly came from below. Everyone looked down, and saw that the center of the explosion set off a column of water that soared into the sky. Countless sea monsters were thrown away, and more sea monsters were torn apart in the air. It is conceivable that this explosion how much power is contained in it. Immediately afterwards, demonic power, spiritual power, and demonic energy intertwined and reciprocated, forming a huge shockwave that violently lifted Fairy Xianxia and Fen Tianyan away. Even Ergu, who had not followed from a distance, was also affected, and he himself was even weaker, so he could only take out his own spiritual sword, and then he could barely stabilize his body. When they came to their senses, the water column just dispersed, and a figure shrouded in grey light emerged. "It's Zuyun." I saw him standing proudly in mid-air holding a golden hammer in his hand. "Do you really think I am invincible?" It turns out that he had deliberately let the demonic energy tear him off before, thus leading to the mastermind behind the scenes. "Boy, you are strong." A thick and cold voice came from under the water, condescending, and then they discovered that there was a black shadow under the sea, stretching for who knows how many miles. The deep sea monster. The only one with such a huge figure is the deep sea monster. However, if you didn't have the help of this fairy weapon, this demon wouldn't have fallen into your trap. The tone gradually became a little unwilling, indicating that the monster in the deep sea had suffered a secret loss from Zuyun. "Humph, it all depends on your ability. If you didn't have these sea monsters leading the charge, you probably wouldn't dare to come to this offshore sea, right?" Zuyun snorted coldly, feeling a little regretful in his heart. Just when he was dragged into the water, he immediately discovered the giant monster of the deep sea. Without any hesitation, he took out the immortal soul hammer and hit it with almost all his strength, but it was just this deep sea giant monster was slightly injured. "Boy," the sea water surged, and black air emerged from the sea, turning into a human shape. He opened his mouth and said, "You humans absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in order to achieve enlightenment. Why don't we, the monsters, not want to? It's just that we all rely on our abilities." Hearing this, Zuyun narrowed his eyes and said, "You came out of the deep sea and made such a big noise. Do you want to escape the disaster?" "Of course, otherwise, am I waiting for death in the deep sea? I have been dormant for tens of thousands of years, and I have already felt the weakness of heaven. Be wise, get out of the way now, there is no need to fight to the death." Zuyun frowned. Indeed, even the full blow of his immortal soul hammer could not do anything to this monster. Now his proposal is very tempting. According to what the other party said, he felt the weakness of heaven, which meant that he could leave the yellow star and go to the fairy world. But on the other hand, this monster doesn't seem that strong. Otherwise, why would he drive so many ordinary sea monsters to the shore? The most important thing is that Zuyun has a certain understanding of the demons outside the territory. These. It is a race that is opposed to the human race. In the fairy world, they desperately want to invade the fairy world and kill the human race. This is a real race that is not mine, and their minds must be different. If you were allowed to leave Yellow Star smoothly, wouldn't that create a powerful enemy for the human race? Impossible. But at the moment, Zuyun has not found a way to deal with it. For the time being, he can only make concessions with the other party, so he said, "You are right. I had no intention of stopping you. It's just that my sect is on the edge of the sea area. I'm afraid you brought many sea monsters to destroy my sect." Warcraft said calmly, "I can go somewhere else, and you and I can turn our hostility into friendship. How about that?" Zuyun sneered in his heart. Since this monster would be willing to compromise, it meant that he didn't want to be his enemy. Then there is only one possibility: he is strong on the outside but weak on the inside. The more important point is that the Warcraft did not know that Zuyun had been to Qingping Fairy Kingdom and learned about the origin of these Warcraft. They are all the offspring of the combination of extraterrestrial demons and monster beasts. After constant dormancy in the sea, the demonic power will be eliminated and turned into demonic energy. If you leave the Yellow Star, you will become a real extraterrestrial demon. It's not impossible. Zuyun rolled his eyes, and he had a calculation in his heart, and said, "You let these sea monsters disperse, and then I will truly believe in you. Otherwise, if you give the order, these sea monsters will go up the cliff. But I can't answer it. And, after the sea monster disperses, you can go ashore from here to show my sincerity." Oh. Warcraft was a little surprised, and secretly thought that although this man was suspicious, the surface of his words did not allow him to find any doubts. And the reason why he came in this direction actually had a plan. Since Zuyun took the initiative to mention it, maybe. "Okay," Warcraft immediately agreed and said, "They are just here to see me off, I will let them disperse now." As the words fell, the monster let out a strange roar. As soon as the sound came, all the sea monsters seemed to have received amnesty. No matter what race they were, they dived into the sea one after another. Within a moment, they disappeared and the sea returned to calm. Zuyun's heart moved, and he quietly used the void-breaking spirit eye technique, and immediately discovered that these sea monsters stopped moving after diving to a certain depth. Obviously, he is still controlled by this monster. Naturally, he wouldn't believe this monster's nonsense. Why did he come to see him off? But he didn't let these sea monsters leave, which shows that if he wants to leave Huangxingxing, he may have to use these sea monsters. Zuyun secretly remembered it in his heart, and suddenly laughed loudly on the surface, saying, "Then invite this fellow demon cultivator, please come here." He put away the immortal soul hammer, turned around and made a gesture of invitation. Warm reminder: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1393. The monster was sneaking under the sea, but the black shadow did not dissipate. It looked as if it had really transformed into a human form and accepted Zuyun's invitation. "Master, you." After meeting Fairy Xianxia and Fen Tianyan spoke eagerly, but was interrupted by Zuyun. "No rush, we'll talk later." He knew in his heart that the strength of the monsters was very strong, and was by no means comparable to those he encountered in Duanxian River. Not to mention the long-term plan, at least he had to keep a certain distance between them and those sea monsters. As long as the Kraken doesn't catch up after landing, and the opponent can't hide his figure, that's Zuyun's opportunity to take action. Zuyun vaguely believed that the reason why Warcraft became a giant monster of the deep sea was because it was restricted by the law of heaven. Otherwise, why has there never been any rumor of the appearance of a giant monster from the deep sea in the spiritual world? Even what he heard recently was from a few years ago when he was held hostage by the Zhang master. Perhaps, the birth of Warcraft this time is the beginning of those deep-sea giant monsters. Who knows that when the Qingping star was shattered, how many magical beasts were brought over to the part of the Qingping fairy kingdom that allowed them to breed with the demon clan? Zuyun doesn't know. He only knows that when these giant monsters of the deep sea are dispatched together, it will be the catastrophe of the entire Yellow Star. At this moment, he also thought of the Nightmare Demon. That demon cultivator who is causing trouble in the four mortal realms. At that time, my level was still low. Well, is the Nightmare also a type of Warcraft? After wondering for a long time, Zuyun took a few people and flew back to the shore of Xianxia sect. After falling down, he asked Fairy Xianxia to leave with the two dogs, while he stayed with Fen Tianyan. Xiaozu, I won't leave. Ergu held the magic knife in his arms and said with a vigilant look on his face. I may need your help later. Zuyun glanced at the magic knife in his hand. He was extremely sure that it was Nujiao's magic knife, the magic knife of that holy demon woman. It's just that I don't know for the time being what the connection between the demon clan and these extraterrestrial demons is. But it is undeniable that this magic knife can definitely cause effective damage to monsters. But Ergu's level is too low. If they fight head-on, not only will it be ineffective, but it may also drag him down. It's better to let Ergu hide so that he can play his true role. Help! Ergu was stunned and immediately understood Zuyun's thoughts. His expression became serious and he said, You want me to make a sneak attack? Yes, you and Xianxia are in a group and follow my orders. If I use a Suanwei fist move, Xianxia will lead him to attack. How about that? Master, I understand. Suanwei fist is a defensive fist, which means that Zuyun was temporarily at a disadvantage at that time, and the opponent may have relaxed his mind. So, where are we hiding? Zuyun pondered for a moment and said, He hid behind my statue. Perhaps because of the power of faith, the statue can somewhat block the perception of this monster. Okay, we get it. Fairy Xianxia also simply took Ergu and left immediately. At the same time, she discussed with Ergu the details of what to do later. Further away, many disciples of the Xianxia sect had not gone far. They were hiding on a hilltop. When they saw Zuyun returning, but not back to the Xianxia sect, they couldn't help but feel wary. Zhu Xian must be in trouble. Yes, he asked Elder Xianxia and Elder Zhou to hide behind the golden body, which shows that the beast tide is extremely dangerous. Let's wait and cheer for Zhu Xian. If we can't even solve Zhu Xian, even if we escape, where will we be able to escape? Yes, Xianxia sect is a good place. I am willing to stay here. I never want to become a rootless wandering cultivator in the spiritual world. During these days, these people in Xianxia sect, not only received great benefits, but the atmosphere in the sect was something they had never felt before. Before the incident at the Shengxian platform, the spiritual world was divided into three major realms. The Nine Netherland was occupied by the demon sect, and there was another force within the heaven and beyond. In addition, it was the Five Elements sect. Needless to say, the Five Elements sect is domineering, and the Nine Netherland is the territory of the demon section. Although on the surface, the demon sect will not kill ordinary casual cultivators, there are still reports of missing casual cultivators from time to time. But casual cultivators don't have much background, so this kind of thing usually goes unanswered. The forces of Tianwei are even less likely to care about these casual cultivators. And they, who have always been arrogant, have never looked down upon casual cultivators. The Xianxia sect is different, they unite and help each other, everything is brought to them by Zuyun. I hope Zhu Xian is okay. If something happens to Zhu Xian, I will definitely kill him later. Even if I blow myself up, I will kill more monsters. A casual cultivator gritted his teeth and said that he was one of the first cultivators brought to Xianguang sect by Zhu Yun. After that, regardless of what others thought of him, he knelt down on the ground, facing the direction of the statue from a distance, muttering something in his mouth. No one saw that a golden thread emerged from his head and rushed towards the statue. After he took the lead and knelt down, there were monks nearby who followed suit and knelt down on the ground. Originally, before daily practice, it was a duty to go to worship in front of the statue of Zhu Yun, especially those monks with low status. Gradually, the statue became brighter and brighter, faintly glowing with golden light. Zhu Yun, however, did not notice this scene. He stood quietly on the cliff by the sea, looking down at the black humanoid figure below. "Fellow Taoist, come up." Half a cup of tea had passed, but the shadow did not move. Zhu Yun had the breaking void spirit eye technique, and could see the huge black shadow under the sea. He could even know that there were countless sea monsters under the black shadow. "Fellow Taoist," the shadow of the demon beast said in a deep voice, "I would like to go up, but I am afraid. How about you come down and take me up?" Zhu Yun sneered in his heart. It seemed that the demon beast was also thinking about it, and was afraid that he would murder him. It was not impossible to go down and bring him up. But the problem was that he didn't know whether the demon beast would attack again after he went down. "Fellow Taoist, this sea is your home ground. Please forgive me for speaking frankly, but I dare not go down. If you are sincere, come up. I am willing to retreat 1 mile away." There was his statue. Zhu Yun did not wait for the demon beast to think about it. Without saying anything, he strode forward with the burning sky flame. He deliberately used the power of chaos so that the demon beast could clearly sense his position. But when he walked under the statue, something strange happened. The immense power of faith in the statue actually flowed into his brows from the center of the statue's eyebrows. Such a good thing, but it came at the wrong time. For a moment, Zhu Yun was stunned. His body was unable to move because of the power of faith. At this time, the monster also moved, and its huge body floated down from the sea, and a huge tentacle climbed up the cliff. Then, the second one. The third one. Until 8 tentacles, with a huge head, emerged from the cliff, and the black eyes stared at Zhu Yun's statue, revealing a greedy look. The power of faith here is his goal. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1394. He has revealed his true form. Zhu Yun's eyes narrowed, he took out the immortal soul hammer and smashed it with a bang. The aura of this body made him feel immense pressure. It is indeed a giant monster of the deep sea. Zhu Yun knew that there was no way out at this moment. With this hammer, he compressed the chaotic power in his body into immortal power and concentrated it on the immortal soul hammer. Boom! A hammer hit with a loud bang, and Zhu Yun was ejected by the force of the shock, but the warcraft hardly suffered any damage. What's going on? Zhu Yun flew half a mile upside down, barely able to stabilize his body. Previously in the sea, he designed the monster to pull his figure into the sea water, and used the sneak attack to cause the monster to suffer a big loss. But now, he was unscathed. Ha ha ha. Seeing Zhu Yun's surprised look, Warcraft burst into laughter. I was unprepared before, so I fell into your trick. Now that I have been born, this magical weapon of yours is used to attack the demon soul. I am an extraterrestrial demon with extraordinary physical talents, and you can't penetrate it at all. Hearing this, Zhu Yun's face couldn't help but become cold. He knew that he had made a big mistake. A big mistake of relying heavily on fairy weapons. The immortal soul hammer is indeed extraordinary. But as the name suggests, this is an immortal weapon that works on the soul. At this moment, he actually missed the Chaos Sword. That dull blade that seems to have no edge is actually indestructible. Back off first. At this time, you can't panic, you can only calm down. Zhu Yun's eyes narrowed slightly, he shouted low, and retreated towards his statue. Want to run? Can you run? The monster laughed ferociously and let out a strange low roar. In an instant, under the cliffs on the coast, countless sea monsters roared at the same time. The sound reached the sky, setting off huge waves, and even some sea monsters jumped onto the cliff with the help of this wild wave. Zhu Yun's face was extremely gloomy, his eyes were fixed on the monster, and he only observed it with the corner of his eye. He thought deeply in his heart, this monster is so powerful, but it still allows these sea monsters to come up. There is absolutely no way that he wants these monsters to come up. The Kraken fights for it. So, what is the purpose? The sea monsters washed ashore one after another, just like when they were in the sea, they crowded together and did not act rashly. The enemy did not move, and Zhu Yun also did not move for the time being, and his mind was rapidly thinking of countermeasures. At the same time, far away, Zhu Xian seems to have no choice. A nascent soul monk whispered, and many low-level monks looked towards him. Maybe, there are too many monsters. Another Danja sage expressed his opinion and said, there are many sea monsters, but there are also many of us. It's not like we haven't killed the sea monsters before. He once went to the sea to help Ergo search for elixirs for alchemy. He did have contact with sea monsters and was able to recognize many sea monsters, but they were actually extremely ordinary. Yes, I can deal with 10 of them at once. Another Danja stager started fighting, with a fanatical look in his eyes. Zhu Xian is probably afraid that these sea monsters will be besieged by a group of people, and they will only care about one thing and not the other. I think we should also stand up. Yes, stand up. Stand up. Stand up. The news gradually spread, but by the end, it had completely changed. It turned into Zhu Xian asking them to fight for the immortal light sect and kill those sea monsters so as to save their immortal light sect. Protect the home and the garden. Protect the home and the garden. Protect the home and the garden. The crowd was excited, and the voices gradually merged into one, making a loud noise that even overwhelmed the sound of the wild waves and tsunami. The eight-clawed monster looked over there in surprise, with a long and vague smile on its lips. Zhu Yun felt a sense of emotion in his heart, as if it was the scene when monks from the mortal world went to the Eastern Victory Realm to deal with the source of all evil. This scene is so similar. Back then, I used my nascent soul stage to kill the source of all evil. Why can't I kill this eight-clawed monster today? A burst of pride arose spontaneously, and Zhu Yun raised his hand. While thinking about it, he had already figured out a magic weapon to deal with this monster. Beat the Dragon Whip. It is true that the Dragon Whip has a definite suppressive effect on the Dragon clan, but in itself, the Dragon Whip also acts on the physical body. Even though you are a powerful monster, why can't I do anything about it? Master, I. At this time, Fairy Xianxia was also led by the monks, but after all, she was still in the stage of transcending the tribulation and could still control her emotions. She kept Zhu Yun's previous instructions in mind and did not appear from behind the statue. You hide for now. When the time comes, you may be the ones to deliver the final blow. Zhu Yun took a deep breath and said without looking back. As soon as he finished speaking, the monks from the Immortal Light sect, who had risen from the nascent soul, were already standing beside him. Zhu Xian, I'm here to help you, what are your orders? Dozens of monks said in unison, including those casual monks who were brought back from outside the Five Elements sect. Ha ha ha, okay. Zhu Yun laughed loudly and said energetically, I will deal with the thieves, and I will leave the rest to you. After the words fell, Zhu Yun's figure flashed, and the next moment, he appeared on the top of the monster's head, and threw the dragon whip down on its head. This son is extremely rich, and he even has an immortal weapon? Could it be that he is the son of a certain immortal family? Feeling the inexplicable pressure coming from the dragon whip, the eight-clawed monster also raised one of its arms and legs to greet him. Snort. Zuyun snorted coldly, his eyes flashing, and the dragon whip actually took the initiative to meet the tentacles. The eight-clawed monster narrowed his eyes, somewhat confused by Zuyun's actions. He only has one dragon whip, but I have 8 tentacles. He will definitely win with this exchange. But just as the tentacles were wrapped around, he saw Zuyun's cunning smile. It's a trick. The monster was shocked and thought it was not good. Just when he wanted to loosen his tentacles to avoid the sharp edge, he saw Zuyun's empty hand and extended 2 fingers. Sword chi released. He saw Zuyun use this move to kill the flying giant fish in the sea, and the power of the thunder that was triggered made him afraid. But how could he know that Zuyun borrowed all the thunder spirit power in the thunder spirit pearl to perform that move? And this time, he used the heavenly talisman. To deal with such a monster, the only way to use it is the method of the fairy world. Entanglement. Entanglement character. Zuyun took more than half a breath to draw the complicated strokes, but it brought an extremely effective effect. Several strokes were divided and entangled towards this arm. In the blink of an eye, this arm several feet long was already tightly entangled. Roar. The monster roared loudly, trying to let the arm break free, but how could the heavenly talisman be so easy? Not to mention that this heavenly talisman was drawn by the power of chaos. At this time, Zuyun let go of the dragon whip and condensed the power of chaos on it. Whoosh! The sound of breaking through the air sounded, and the dragon whip was like a straight thin sword, with a cold light pointing directly at the right eye of the monster. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1395. Damn it! Concentrating all his strength on one point, Zuyun used the dragon beating whip to use the Wuji sword technique, pointing directly at the weak point. Even though the eight-clawed monster is physically powerful, its eyes have no protection. Unless he closes his eyes. But how much can the weak eyelids block? Zuyun used the Arankar to make the most of the Wuji sword technique he had learned. Get out of here! One of its arms and legs was entangled, and the eight-clawed monster's range of movement was also restricted. It was unable to dodge at all. It simply gritted its teeth, threw 2 arms and legs, and smashed towards Zuyun. Oh! Zuyun smiled slightly, things seemed to be developing in the direction he expected. Cut! The dragon beating whip at this moment was extremely hard, and as he shouted low, it turned out to be like a fairy sword, facing the 2 arms and legs. No, I fell into a trap. The eight-clawed monster exclaimed, and thoughts immediately flashed through his mind. Rather than having 2 legs cut off by Zuyun, it would be better to cut off one of your own. If you continue to interrupt, you will suffer chaos. This monster is also a ferocious creature, with the ferocity of an extraterrestrial devil. With a single grit of its teeth, it separated the arms and legs entangled in the heavenly talisman, and then quickly retreated backwards, into the tide of sea monsters. Run away now! Aren't you crazy? Zuyun raised the corner of his mouth and said with a sarcastic expression. In fact, he couldn't help but feel lucky that he had made the right bet. If the monster confronts him head-on, breaks 2 arms and legs, and attacks Zuyun with the other arm, I am afraid he will be the only one who loses. Huh, huh. The monster was breathing heavily, and its huge head continued to expand and contract with his breathing. A pair of big black and deep eyes looked directly at Zuyun with a ferocious expression. Crazy, he is very crazy. But this time, in order to jump out of the Huangming realm and reach the immortal realm, he couldn't afford to lose anything. Only then did he seek stability and cut off one of his arms and legs. Boy, Why are you planning this on me? Originally, you and I can live in peace. The eight-clawed monster still couldn't figure out why Zuyun wanted to attack him. He could obviously ignore the matter. Is everything okay? Zuyun said disdainfully, we agreed that if you let these sea monsters go, I can also take you ashore. It's obvious that you lied to me. As a person, I hate it when others lie to me, no matter who they are. Zuyun said solemnly, his eyes swept over and saw that the monks above Nascent Soul were already massacring the sea monsters. The human race and the demon race can actually live in peace. But these sea monsters were captured and became the pawns of the monsters. Zuyun had no choice but to let them kill them. But with just such a glance, he secretly felt that something was wrong. If these sea monsters were useful to the monsters, then why did the monsters not react at all to such a one-sided massacre? Could it be that the role of these monsters has no impact on the monsters, whether they live or die? When he thought of this, Zuyun secretly thought something was wrong, and immediately shouted in a low voice, "You guys come back first." Want to go back? It's too late. Realizing that Zuyun had seen through his plan, the monster laughed ferociously, flicked its arms and legs, and immediately brought up soaring demonic energy, surrounding all these monks. Court death. Zuyun's pupils shrank, and he was even more sure of this monster's thoughts. He wanted to use the hands of the monks to help it kill the sea monster, thereby gaining some power that he didn't know about. That's for sure. He has never seen this kind of magic beast's deception training method, but there is a similar magic way in the demon cultivation. He must be stopped. Zuyun's eyes were focused on this invisible body of black mist. If he wanted to use the dragon whip, he might not be able to do it, so why not? Try using the immortal soul hammer first. Just do it. Zuyun put away the dragon beating whip and replaced it with the immortal soul hammer. For a moment, golden light bloomed. He raised the immortal soul hammer and smashed it towards the black mist. When the fairy mist arrives, the black mist is indeed stirred up. But soon, the gap in the black mist was quickly filled by the surrounding demonic energy. GGG. The monster smiled ferociously, seeming to be mocking Zuyun for the futility of his efforts. Do you think this is all I can do? Zuyun's mind was like lightning, and he immediately had a suspicion in his heart. All things in the world are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. And Tianli has absolute restraint on this demonic energy. The immortal soul hammer is an immortal weapon and cannot be effective, which means that this black mist cannot be solved by the level of power. Since it has nothing to do with the level of power, then the heaven-gathering thunder talisman might be feasible. The intermediate level heaven-gathering thunder talisman has limited damage, but it is a natural nemesis of demonic energy and the like. Besides, if you really want to count the sky thunder, it is also an invisible thing. Heaven-gathering thunder talisman. Zuyun quickly converted the chaos power into thunder power at his fingertips and drew a sky-gathering thunder talisman. He didn't know how long the battle with the monster would take, and he still needed to save his spiritual power. Try it with a heaven-gathering thunder talisman first. Intermediate talisman, he did not need 100 breaths of time to complete it. The lightning flashed, soared into the sky, and the moment it disappeared, there was a muffled sound in the sky. Immediately afterwards, a thunderbolt as thick as a forearm crashed down. Boom! With a loud noise, the thunder pillar disappeared directly into the black mist, but there was not much change. Boy, Tianli is too weak. The eight-clawed monster clearly felt the breath of the heaven-gathering thunder talisman, and suddenly laughed again. So what if we're weak? Zuyun asked disdainfully, but how can your black mist withstand my thunder? After the words fell, Zuyun threw the immortal soul hammer into his brow, and then began to draw talismans with his hands behind his back. 1. 2. 10. 100. In the sky, dark clouds rolled and covered the sky. In the dark clouds, countless lightning snakes drilled through, and when they showed their heads, they would quickly fall. Zhu Yun's hands flew, as if flying through flowers and butterflies. In a moment, he had drawn hundreds of them. Boom! 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 The thunder was endless, and countless thunders could not be stopped at all, like a downpour. One thunder may only reduce a trace of black fog, but what about 100? 1,000? 10,000? In an instant, the volume of the black fog dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the face of the eight-clawed monster became solemn. "Stop this kid!" Whoosh! A tentacle suddenly rushed out from the black fog and smashed towards Zhu Yun. The monster did not expect that this attack could hurt Zhu Yun, but as long as he could stop Zhu Yun from continuing to draw the gathering heavenly thunder talisman. But how could he know that Zhu Yun's attainments in the way of talismans had already surpassed those of the spirit world? His foundation was extremely solid, and he learned the exquisite talisman method from the ancestor of the Lin family. In the Tianfu space, he used the way of heavenly talismans to break through thousands of purgatory mountains. To put it bluntly, if Zhu Yun wanted to break through with the way of talismans, he might be able to prove his way with talismans in the future. Seeing the attacking tentacle, Zhu Yun used two minds at once, poured part of the chaotic power under his feet, and dodged the attack with the Changsheng Ju. But his hands never stopped at all. In just a few breaths, hundreds of gathering heavenly thunder talismans fell down again. And in this gathering heavenly thunder talisman, Zhu Yun also quietly drew an entangled heavenly talisman. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1396. Seeing the complicated strokes coming again, the demon beast was like a snake in a cup of wine, and suddenly retracted its arms and legs. The last time he was entangled by this heavenly talisman, he was forced to cut off one of his arms, which left a shadow in his heart. Het. Zhu Yun sneered, and ignored it, and continued to draw the Tianli talisman. The most urgent task was to rescue those monks from the black fog first, and not let them become the helpers of this demon beast to slaughter demon beasts. This attack was forced back by Zhu Yun, and the demon beast was so anxious that he jumped up like thunder. If he went forward, he could not hurt Zhu Yun. If he retreated, he could only watch his black fog being slowly dissipated. If the demon energy is consumed, even if he can kill it at that time, it is inevitable that accidents will occur when he rushes through the heavenly way. Instead of doing this, it is better to kill those demon beasts together. The demon beast has no way out. No matter what the result is, it is not good for him. Then he can only choose the one with less loss and risk. What Zhu Yun consumed was the purest demonic energy in his body. These demonic energies were hard-won. They were accumulated after he became the deep-sea giant monster after tens of thousands of years. But it was so easy for Zhu Yun to consume them. Naturally, the monsters could not watch Zhu Yun continue to do it. Moreover, this demonic energy would be the most important power for him to jump out of the restrictions of the heavenly way, as the source of power to protect his body and resist the tearing of the void. There were many monsters here, but it was extremely easy for the monsters to kill them. At this moment, he seemed to stand with the monks, waving the remaining 7 tentacles and sweeping them directly. Like the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves, wherever the tentacles went, those ordinary sea monsters were instantly broken into flesh and blood, flowing on the ground. This scene naturally shocked the monks who were fighting. Why is this deep-sea giant monster killing sea monsters? Several monks stopped their actions with such questions. Intuition told them that something was wrong. Keep killing, or don't blame me for being rude. When the monster saw these monks stop, his eyes suddenly condensed, and his huge black eyeballs seemed to swallow people. But these monks were not stupid. Instead of continuing to kill the sea monsters, they all took a few steps back, and then stood together, looking at the monsters vigilantly. "You don't move." The monster's eyes turned cold, and he used his own magic thoughts to control the sea monsters around them. The sea monsters were far inferior in realm, and they lost their minds in a moment. The bloodthirsty killing nature deep in their hearts was immediately stimulated, and they surrounded the monks. After a period of one-sided killing, many sea monsters here have appeared in the Demon King realm. "Don't let him succeed, we retreat first." A man in the god transformation stage looked solemn, and he alone held up the sea monsters and protected the rest of the monks behind him. "Brother Jin, let's advance and retreat together." There are not many positions in the Xianxia sect, and they all practice their own skills. Naturally, there is no seniority, but there must be respect and inferiority, so they are all based on their realms and call each other brothers. A group of cultivators said in unison that they did not want Brother Jin to deal with many demon cultivators alone. "It doesn't matter. This deep-sea giant monster seems to want to use us and use us as knives. Maybe he wants to obtain some kind of power after the death of these sea monsters. Now Zhu Xian is still looking for a way to kill them. We would rather die than increase his strength." Brother Jin was righteous and slapped a monster that attacked him with one hand. His righteous words resonated with the other cultivators. Brother Jin said, "If that's the case, why don't we go kill the deep-sea giant monster?" A late nascent soul took a step forward, licked his lips, and looked towards the monster. "If you must die, it's better to challenge the legendary deep-sea giant monster, which can be regarded as death without fear. Anyway, after hundreds of years of being submissive in the spirit world, we can choose a quick death." Yes, what Senior Brother Chen said is true. This deep-sea giant monster is very scheming and has used a lot of our time. Now he is also killing sea monsters, so we don't want to let him feel comfortable. Him. Another Yuanying, with a sinister smile on his face, completely disregarding life and death. "Ha ha ha, did you see that the deep-sea giant monster lost a hand? It must have been done by Zhu Xian. If we can also cut off a hand, it won't be a loss." Still a Yuanying, he keenly saw the monster spinning its body and strangling the endless sea monsters. From the slightly delayed movements, he saw the problem. Everyone's eyes lit up. Senior Brother Jin said coldly, "What's the fun of cutting off the hand, or just behead it?" As a casual cultivator in the god transformation stage, he has fought in the spirit world for thousands of years. Naturally, his experience in this battle is extremely rich, and he keenly found the weakness of the monster. Attacking in the direction of the broken wrist will definitely catch him off guard. If they were a little slower, they might be able to hurt him. As soon as he said it, Senior Brother Jin shouted in a low voice, "Split into two groups, and entangle the tentacles on both sides of the broken wrist. Then, I will poke his eyes. For this kind of sea monster, I believe his weakness is above the eyes." "Okay, I will listen to Senior Brother Jin in everything." When there are many people, the most feared thing is that they are like scattered sand. These cultivators have the same ideas as the spiritualization stage to issue orders, and they can naturally exert stronger strength. Unfortunately, for the monster, this is still a mantis trying to stop a chariot, and it is not worth fearing. The Yuanyings that rushed up from both sides were quickly killed by the tentacles. The other half were directly beaten out of the black mist. But Senior Brother Jin turned a blind eye. When the monster counterattacked, his body also jumped out, turning into a golden light, pointing directly at the opponent's right eye. He remembered. At that time, Zhu Yun attacked this right eye. The golden light was extremely fast, and even the monster did not expect that these people did not act together and had a backup plan. I thought it was also a Yuanying period, but I didn't expect that Senior Brother Chen would burn his life and blood at this moment, bursting out with the peak of the late stage of Huashan, close to the strength of the Liangsu period. Die. Senior brother Jin shouted angrily, and his speed increased to the extreme. At this moment, the monster finally panicked. The two tentacles next to it had just beaten two waves of monks away. It was the time when the old power had not gone and the new power had not been born. And the inertia of his excessive force had not yet dissipated. How to take it back? The broken wrist was even more irresistible, and could only watch the golden light magnify in the eyeball. Puff! The golden light entered the eyes, and it was that senior brother Jin who directly drilled himself into the eye socket of the monster. Pop! Another strange explosion sounded, and the black eyeball turned into a ball of black water and exploded violently. The black water splashed on the land, reefs, and grass, and immediately a kind of foul-smelling green smoke rose. Splashing on the body of the sea monster, it even emitted a stinky and disgusting smell of rotting corpses. At the same time, Zuyun saw more than 20 seriously injured Yuanying stage people flying out, and he couldn't help but be stunned. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1397. What happened in there? Upon seeing this, Zuyun quickly stopped the heaven-gathering thunder talisman and immediately stepped forward to greet him. A nascent soul stage coughed up blood and did not bother to wipe it off, but said eagerly to Zuyun, "Zuxian, the giant deep-sea monster is killing the sea monsters." According to Brother Jin's guess, it seems to be using the sea monsters. Corpse flesh and blood. Most of the brothers are dead. And Senior Brother Jin, I saw that Senior Brother Jin seemed to have gotten into the eyeballs of the giant monster in the deep sea. Everyone was chatting and conveyed all the information they knew to Zuyun. You said, the giant monster of the deep sea was injured. And where are Kim Jongming and others? Senior Brother Jin was once one of those casual cultivators in the alliance. Zuyun still remembered his name and couldn't help being surprised and happy when he heard about his current situation. Naturally, he was shocked because Jin Zhenming's life and death were unknown, but he was happy because he wanted to blast the eyes of the monster, but Jin Zhenming completed it. I don't know. I only saw Senior Brother Jin getting in before I was blasted out of the fog. However, the deep-sea monster seemed to be injured, and his eyes turned into puddles of water. Zuyun took a deep breath and said, "Very good. Hurry up and hide behind the statue to heal your wounds. Maybe there will be a hard fight later." "No, Zuxian, we can still fight." Several nascent souls stood up with their bodies propped up. This was not a lie. Most of their injuries were indeed external injuries. At most, they were shaken by the strength of the Kraken's wrist, causing spiritual energy to surge in their bodies. Listen to me and go heal quickly. If the black fog is not removed, I won't be able to enter it. Zuyun's tone gradually became serious, and these nascent soul cultivators did not dare to stay here any longer, so they followed Zuyun's orders and rushed behind the statue. When they saw Fairy Xianxia, they were all stunned. "Everyone sit down, I will heal your injuries." Fairy Xianxia also heard Zuyun's words and knew what he meant. Although Fairy Xianxia is not proficient in healing injuries. But after all, it is the period of transcending tribulation, and it is not difficult to resolve the injuries in these nascent soul monks. "Thank you, Elder Xianxia." Fairy Xianxia is the only one in the tribulation stage, and they respectfully call her the Elder. After a slight nod, everyone sat down one by one and formed a column. Fairy Xianxia and Ergu looked at each other. Ergu understood and took the initiative to protect them. Then Fairy Xianxia began to heal their wounds one by one. This way. Zuyun frantically drew the heaven-gathering thunder talisman with his hands, just thinking about getting rid of the black fog, and then killing the monster when it only had one eye left, if possible. He vaguely felt that this would be the best opportunity. If the other party is completely blind, they may be able to sense it through magic consciousness. There is only one single eye left, and I can still see, but there will definitely be a slight difference in the position locking. This is Zuyun's opportunity. Break it for me, break it. Zuyun shouted in a deep voice, drawing the heaven-gathering thunder talisman continuously in his hand. In this short period of time, he has already drawn thousands of pictures. The speed of the heaven-gathering thunder talisman has once again been increased by more than 10%. Not enough, not enough. If the dark fog breaks open a moment later, Kim Jongmyeon will be in even more danger. Zuyun knew very well that Jin Zhengming must have seen that he wanted to hurt the opponent's eyeball before. Otherwise, why would there be such separate actions? And among these monks, only Jin Zhengming has the highest level. How could I ignore his life and death in order to fulfill my wish? Zuyun's eyes became more solemn as he watched the black mist slowly fade under the heaven-gathering thunder talisman. Finally, he could vaguely see the body of the warcraft hiding in it through the black mist. Call. After exhaling a heavy breath, Zuyun also used the divine eye technique without hesitation. Inside the body, in the lower abdomen, on the chaos lotus. 24 of the chaos lotus hearts suddenly burst out with chaos power, then rushed straight to the forehead, and after being purified, they gathered in the eyes. Warcraft. Sure enough, I saw that the right eye on the huge round head turned into a black blood hole, but I couldn't see any shadow of Kim Jongmyeon. It should be almost done. Zuyun drew the heaven-gathering thunder talisman with one hand, and slammed it with the other hand. Blue Dragon Fist. He used the divine eye technique to lock the position of the monster, but the monster didn't know the situation. Hearing that Zuyun had changed a new move, he didn't care. What he cares more about is that his eyeball is injured and destroyed, and he needs to swallow as much power as possible from the sea monster to make the eyeball grow again. But when the black mist gradually dissipated amidst King Glong's roar, his one eye finally revealed an incredible look. This is an immortal method. This must be an immortal method. The monster screamed in fear and retreated hastily to one side. But if Qinglong has intelligence, the monster has already been locked. Wherever he goes, Qinglong will point its head. Before the blow came, Zuyun punched with his backhand and came out again. White Tiger Fist. While the other party is overwhelmed, if you don't take action now, when will you wait? Damn it, boy, I'm going to fight you. The one eye of the monster shot out an angry black light. He gave in again and again, all in order to preserve his demonic energy. Finally, according to his own plan, he used the magic of the devil to jump out of the yellow star and go to the fairy world. Middle. But Zuyun actually insisted on fighting him to the death. If you want to fight, then I will fight. The worst thing is, continue to return to the wild sea, become a deep-sea giant monster, and come out again after 100,000 years. The devil's nature was completely aroused, and the monster also planned to fight to the death with Zuyunyu. Looking at the azure dragon phantom that was chasing closely, he suddenly raised his two tentacles and entangled it. This time, it was completely different from the previous attack. The two tentacles seemed to be stained with black ink. This was his last trump card, the purest devil energy. He was already physically strong, and now he was even more unstoppable. The two tentacles tightly entangled the azure dragon phantom, and instantly twisted it into dots of green light, and then dispersed. Boy, this demon is going to eat you alive. The monster roared, his eyes full of hatred and resentment. But as soon as the voice fell, the phantom of the white tiger suddenly jumped from the air above into the gradually fading black fog. Roar! Tiger roar! The white tiger grabbed one tentacles with one claw, but bit the other tentacles with its big mouth. So fast, such an unexpected change. The monster couldn't react in time. He could never have imagined that Zuyun could use it with just a thought. This four-sided divine beast fist, which was based on the 28 constellations of the fairy world, was more than enough to break his two wrists. With a sharp pain, the two arms and legs that were full of magic energy were directly broken, and countless blood spurted out, splashing on countless sea monsters. Wherever they went, the sea monsters all turned into a pool of blood with demonic energy in their whales. Damn human ants! The monster was furious, and 3 of the 8 legs were broken. He wanted to take the black mist back into his body. In addition to replenishing the consumed pure magic energy, he also wanted to kill Zuyun head-on. But what he didn't expect was, while the magic energy was still being gathered, Zuyun suddenly used the Vermilion Bird Fist, which had the widest killing range. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1398. This is Zuyun's last, powerful killing move. To deal with a creature like the warcraft that is known for its physique, only by burning its hair and skin with the fire of the vermilion bird can it be seriously injured. Zuyun also thought of one thing, that is, since the warcraft is hiding under the deep sea, it must be affected by the sea water to some extent, so it must be more afraid of fire. Therefore, he used the vermilion bird fist as the last means of attack. Die. The warcraft's single eye was shining with endless black light. Seeing the vermilion bird magnified in his eyes, he roared fiercely, and the remaining 5 tentacles, 3 of them were entangled with the vermilion bird, and the other 2 were like spears, stabbing Zuyun. Time is up. Zuyun's mind was shocked. The black air of these 2 tentacles was swirling. It was obvious that the warcraft wanted to kill him at the risk of serious injury. But how could he let the other party succeed? Suinwu fist. Zuyun did not hesitate. He retracted his right hand and blasted out with his left hand. A black tortoise head suddenly appeared from the fist. The black tortoise raised its head slightly, jumped out of Zuyun's fist, stood up, and aimed its tortoise shell at the 2 tentacles that attacked it. Bang! Bang! The 2 tentacles hit the tortoise shell heavily. This was the full force of the monster. After a loud bang, the black gas surged and spread out in all directions. The ground shook, and there were landslides and tsunamis. On a cliff along the coast, the reefs fell off layer by layer and fell into the sea. Many of the monsters that were captured by the monster also fell into the sea. The moment he entered the water, the red light in his eyes dissipated and he regained his consciousness. The crazy look gradually became clear again, but there was fear slowly flowing. Die for me, die for me. The monster's attack was not heavy, and the black tortoise shell was indestructible. His remaining demonic energy could not pierce it at all. He suddenly retracted and accumulated power again, and blasted towards Zuyun again. But the demonic energy had already dissipated a lot, and the second attack was not as strong as the first one. But he firmly believed that Zuyun, a small god transformation stage, could not hold on for long. However, just when he attacked with his arms and legs for the second time, a light and shadow suddenly jumped out from under Zuyun's golden body. Fairy Xianxia. She always remembered Zuyun's instructions, and when he used the black tortoise fist, it would be her chance to attack. Of course, her move was also a false move. Light of Xianxia. With a delicate cry, Fairy Xianxia suddenly burst out a mysterious light, illuminating the entire sky. The light flowed, constantly changing color, and finally condensed into a red long sword, slashing towards the huge round head of the monster. This is the tribulation stage. The power that erupted at this moment was even stronger than Zuyun's momentum. The sky changed color, the shock on the cliff was stronger, and the waves on the sea surface rushed higher. Why? The 3 tentacles of the monster just managed to entangle Zuck and dissipate the chaotic power. The tentacles were charred black, and it was obvious that he had suffered a lot of injuries. But at this time, he had to raise these 3 tentacles and roll them towards the red glow. Fairy Xianxia concentrated all her spiritual power on this move. Only by entangled with the monster as much as possible could she create opportunities for Ergu. Fairy Xianxia took a look at the magic knife and felt that it was more terrifying than this monster. Whoosh! 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 The three tentacles finally came into contact with the red glow, and kept surging back and forth in the air. At this time, Urgu suddenly emerged from a ball of black air, taking strange steps, and it was impossible to guess where he would go next. It's okay for someone in the tribulation period to come, but even someone in the nascent soul period dared to rush forward? The demon beast stared at him fiercely, and when he was about to condense a trace of demonic energy to strangle Urgu, the red cloud fairy suddenly increased her spiritual power output and retracted her tentacles towards her. Kill her first. The demon beast only had 5 tentacles left, and he didn't want to be distracted. He could feel that Urgu's aura was indeed insufficient and it was difficult to hurt him. After he separated his mind, he was temporarily at a disadvantage in the battle with the red cloud fairy, not to mention Zuyun who had a fairy weapon. At this time, the 2 tentacles suppressed Zuyun. He could only win this game by strangling the red cloud fairy. He was unwilling to hide in the sea for tens of thousands of years, but he would be killed by a weak human cultivator. Thinking of this, the demon beast's one eye stared at the red cloud fairy, and the dark and deep light made the red cloud fairy tremble. She knew that if it was a demon beast in its prime, she would definitely not dare to fight it. So it can be seen how terrifying Zuyun is. At present, they can only survive if they grit their teeth and persist, and win the opportunity for Urgu. Red Cloud Slash. Fairy Red Cloud suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood, so that she could be alert. At the same time, the glow of the glow also changed rapidly, and her momentum soared. Compared with the possibility of death, what is the injury at this time? The glow of the glow changed from a long sword to a wild knife. The red light dyed the sky, like the afterglow of the setting sun, burning the clouds in the sky. Boom! This wild knife, several feet long, from bottom to top, slashed straight at the 2 tentacles. Die! The monster roared. In this lightning and flint, he saw the flaw of Fairy Red Cloud. You actually want to cut off 2 feet with one knife? I am a monster, with the blood of the outer demon. Even if I am seriously injured, I can only cut off 1 for you at most. Crack! As soon as the thought came up, the red mad knife cut off 1 of the arms and legs, and the glow suddenly dimmed. When it cut to another arm and leg, it suddenly scattered. He he he. The monster laughed grimly, and the arm and leg were like a thick and long stick in black ink, hitting the waist of the red cloud fairy. Puff! The red cloud fairy spit out blood from her mouth, like a rubble hit by a long stick, flying far away. Until it hit the golden statue of Zuyun heavily, and then it fell down suddenly. Next, it's your turn. The monster swung its arms and legs, and the arms and legs that were just hard and straight became soft and boneless, attacking Zuyun from top to bottom. He could feel that Zuyun was about to give up, and cracks had gradually appeared on the black tortoise shell. Zhu Xian! Zhu Xian! A mile away, those monks who had just escaped and hid saw the scene and shouted hysterically. But even a tribulation stage cultivator like Fairy Xianxia couldn't do anything to the demon beast, so what else could they do? We are coming. At this time, countless cultivators appeared again in the distance. Those were cultivators of a weaker realm. At most, they were at the core formation stage. But the core formation stage cultivators could already fly in the air, and they flew over desperately, wanting to use their lives to fill the gap and help Zuyun win a breath of opportunity. The slower foundation establishment stage cultivators even stepped on the magic weapon with a resolute look. Ants, all ants. No matter how many come, they are just ants. The demon beast was disdainful and ignored it. Its tentacles stood up on Zuyun's head, with its toes pointing downwards, emitting a dark cold light, like an inverted spear. At this time, Urgu finally found an opportunity. The magic knife, rise. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1399. The knife falls from the hand. Urgu's magic knife pierced hard into the one eye of the demon beast leader. In an instant, the dark red light was completely submerged in it, even Urgu's entire arm. Roar. The monster no longer speaks human words, but roars crazily. At the same time, he retracted his forearms and legs and slammed them towards Urgu. Bang. Urgu couldn't escape at all, because Urgu's whole body seemed to be tightly sucked by those eye sockets. One of the arms and legs immediately smashed the two dogs out hard. That arm, along with the magic knife, remained in the eye socket. Roar. 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 The monster let out a heart-rending roar, and after knocking the two dogs away, it quickly retreated. All the demonic energy was restrained, and it turned around and ran away under the cliff. Both eyes are completely destroyed. If he continues to stay, he will probably die. Don't let him escape. Zuyun exclaimed, but he was full of ambition but not strong enough. He had been using Suanwu fist to hold the two arms and legs of the monster. At this time, his body was already exhausted and he was unable to pursue it. The rest of the monks who rushed up were unable to break through the defense of the monster itself, let alone others. Fairy Xianxia was seriously injured, and the two dogs also lost their arms and fell into coma. No one available. As the monsters receded, the sea monsters quickly regained their consciousness. On the shore, they would have a natural sense of uneasiness, and they also left one after another and jumped back into the sea. After the dust settled, the surviving monks who were hiding behind the statues in Xianguang sect also ran out. Zhu Xian, how are you? That giant monster of the deep sea is really terrifying. Yeah, if it weren't for Zhu Xian this time, I'm afraid we would all be dead. Listening to the various voices in his ears, Zuyun frowned and said, Go and see Urgu and Fairy Xianxia first, and then bring them back to the sect. Yes, Zhu Xian. In the Xianguang sect, Zuyun opened the furnace to make alchemy. Urgu seemed to have a broken arm, but in fact, the injury was not as serious as Fairy Xianxia. When Urgu reaches the nascent soul stage, he can completely regenerate his broken limbs. This is just a trauma. Fairy Xianxia, on the other hand, burns her essence and blood and exerts all her energy. If handled improperly, it is very likely to damage the origin and cause permanent regression in her cultivation. But Zuyun's realm was not enough to refine the elixir that could help heal injuries during the tribulation period. He thought of his master, Yesuanhua. After settling everything, Zuyun set up a large formation, and then dived into the world of Dazhu. Master, this time, I have something important to ask of you. Zuyun went straight to the point and took out the immortal furnace that he got from the five elements Sanren. What a stove, what a stove! Yesuanhua saw that Zuyun was in trouble, but when he saw the alchemy furnace, he couldn't help but be amazed. Master, the furnace is a good furnace. Zuyun took a deep breath and said, So, I will give this good furnace to you. However, I need your help in refining the elixir that can help you survive the calamity and heal your injuries. Transcending the tribulation period, Yesuanhua originally wanted to reach out and touch the immortal furnace. When he heard Zuyun's words, he immediately retracted his hand and said with wide eyes, Good boy, are you letting me die? Zuyun was silent, knowing that with Yesuanhua's level, it was indeed difficult for others. But other than that, he had no choice. Master, let those monks from the fairyland try to refine it. Corresponding realm, refine the corresponding elixir. Zuyun could only place his hope in those monks, the so-called new disciples of Yesuanhua. Among them, there are many who have the period of transcending tribulation. However, their alchemy skills may have just begun. If you want to refine it, although it is difficult, it is not completely impossible. The premise is that Yesuanhua can provide step-by-step guidance from the side, but the chance is not high. I know what you mean, Yesuanhua frowned and said, the basics of elixirs are actually the same, but to correspond to the period of transcending tribulation, a more powerful elixir is needed. I don't know about the world of the universe. Yes, but I certainly don't. I'll take care of the elixir issue. As long as you can help refine it, that'll be fine. Zuyun nodded, and then his figure disappeared. This time, he went to the immortal mansion. After taking a deep look at the bedroom where the demonic aura was revealed from time to time, Zuyun still felt a little uneasy in his heart. But right now, there is no solution, so we can only let it go. When he came to the medicine garden, Zuyun found Huang Longshu. After explaining the symptoms of Fairy Xianxia in detail, Huang Longshu called Hong Yi. I heard from you that the magic that Fairy Xianxia practices is mainly based on light, and will eventually turn into the light of Xianxia. So, the red leaves of rainbow leaf should be fine. Zuyun nodded, looked at Hong Yi, and apologized, I have to compromise some of your cultivation again. Hong Yi was calm and said with a smile, it's just a leaf. If it's broken, it can be regenerated. But if the person is gone, then it's gone. Zuyun felt deeply that if Fairy Xianxia had not shown her loyalty, he might not have saved her. I am not a saint. But you should treat your own people with sincerity. He vaguely guessed that the reason why Qingping's star was destroyed might also be related to the civil strife among the immortals there, so he gave the demon outside the territory a chance. After taking the leaves, the 10,000-year-old blood ginseng suddenly ran over, cut off a few roots, handed them to Zuyun, and said, Master, this can prolong life, you can take some too. The essence grass also followed and cut off a leaf, my leaf is also good. Zuyun laughed and took them one by one, okay. Then I'll leave first. After bidding farewell to the immortal medicines, Zuyun returned to the universe world. Yesuanhua's face was full of disbelief. Each kind of spiritual medicine revealed a very strong medicinal breath. How long has his apprentice been away? He actually has so many spiritual medicines. No, this is definitely not a spiritual medicine. Fortunately, Yesuanhua also knew that Zuyun had a lot of secrets. He was a person who knew a lot and would not ask too much. Good boy, it seems that my master is much poorer than you. After taking the immortal medicine, Yesuanhua stopped talking nonsense with Zuyun, called a person in the tribulation period, and started to refine the medicine directly. Master, I'll leave first and come back later. Go ahead, I won't have time to deal with you later. Yesuanhua waved his hand and instructed the tribulation stage to start the furnace to make the elixir. After leaving, Zuyun found the unconscious Ergu. After a period of treatment, Ergu also woke up. I didn't expect that I was the same as Daegu, and I also lost a hand. Looking at the empty side of his body, Ergu laughed at himself. Ergu, if it weren't for you, this time it would be difficult. Zuyun smiled, took out his own elixir furnace, and summoned the burning sky flame to start the furnace to make the elixir. At the same time, not far from the edge of the sea, a figure rushed over. Demon knife, I feel my demon knife. It turns out that it is at the bottom of the sea. It was Nujiao. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1400. After Nujiao returned to the cave, she found that Xiao Hizi had run away with everything. Tu Duduo was no longer in the sect, and no one provided her with pills. In desperation, she left the Five Elements sect and headed south along the coastline, planning to reach the land of 9 netherworlds. But because of the noise caused by the fight between Xianguang sect and the monsters, as well as the soaring demonic energy, Nujiao quickly rushed towards this place. Unfortunately, she was still in the foundation building stage and her pace was not fast. When she arrived, the monster's eyes were destroyed and retreated into the sea. But at such a close distance, she sensed the magic knife. With the magic sword in hand, who will be my opponent? Nujiao's eyes sparkled, and she jumped down and jumped straight into the sea. She could feel the magic knife diving crazily, and vaguely guessed that someone must have stabbed a certain sea monster with the magic knife, and then the sea monster escaped with the magic knife. Is it, that Mengwei? Xiaozu, do you know where my magic knife is? In the Xianguang sect, Ergu asked with a naive smile. After he stabbed the demonic knife into the eye socket of the demonic beast, he was knocked away by the demonic beast with its arms and legs. He had no idea what happened next. The magic sword, Zhu Yun's expression darkened, and he said, it was taken away by a magic beast. Don't worry, I will find time to find it. Forget it, Ergu didn't care. He smiled and said, it's gone if it's gone. Recently, I feel that the magic sword is getting more and more difficult to control. How? Zhu Yun was stunned and quickly asked, remembering that after Ergu stayed in Nujiao's bedroom, the bedroom had changed. He couldn't help but guess whether the magic knife had been affected in some way. In other words, everything was originally caused by the magic knife. I can't tell, Ergu said, since I woke up last time, I've noticed something is wrong. The magic sword often wants to get out of my control. Maybe it wants to return to the hands of Master Meng Xiao. Boundless. Zhu Yun thought of Nujiao, but there was nothing revealed on the surface. After thinking for a moment, he pulled out a big knife from the ring. Then you should have a spiritual weapon, Nyo, here's it for you. This broadsword is exactly the broadsword of the Lingzun swordsman in the secret realm of Ascension. It's also an excellent spiritual weapon. Xiaozu, such a good knife, give it to me. What about you? A flash of joy flashed in Ergu's eyes, but he was too embarrassed to put it down directly. I don't need a knife, Zhu Yun said with a smile, just hold it. The owner of this knife has died. When Fairy Xianxia wakes up, let her help you refine this knife. Okay, you're welcome then. Thank you, Xiaozu. We are brothers, why are you so polite? Zhu Yun smiled and patted Ergu on the shoulder and said, when you recover from your injury and grow your right arm again, I will take you to a good place. The spiritual world is becoming more and more chaotic, and Zhu Yun also vaguely feels that something is about to change again. Starting from the collapse of the secret realm of Xianxia, all kinds of evil cultivators will appear. He can't take care of too many people, but he will never let anything happen to Ergu. Furthermore, Ergu has already been contaminated by the world of the universe, and if he stays here, it will probably be more difficult for him to break through. And he himself has no obvious talent, but he can cultivate to the nascent soul stage only because he has appeared around him several times. Perhaps Ergu's journey to immortality ends here. But Zhu Yun wanted to help him as much as possible. When it comes to cultivation, it depends on Ergu himself. All he can do is to provide him with a safe environment as much as possible. Several days passed. Ergu's arms gradually grew. Zhu Yun has not been idle these days. In addition to helping Xianguang sect refine some elixirs, he will observe his statue whenever he has time. He wanted to see why the statue absorbed the power of faith. In other words, how is the power of faith stored in this statue? If he could master these powers, his combat power might undergo earth-shaking changes. After this battle, the worship of Zhu Yun within the Xianguang sect became even more fanatical. At the same time, many monks believe that their strength is still too weak. Although it is safe in Xianguang sect, because the sect is composed of casual practitioners, there is no one who can give experience in practicing different techniques to help them reach a higher level. Under this situation, many Yuanying and Danja monks explained to Nangang Xiu that they wanted to go out to practice. If they want to go, let them go, Zhu Yun said to Xiu with a smile, they are on the right path. However, they need to pay more attention to the recent turmoil in the spiritual world. In comparison, the 9 Netherlands may be safer. Evil cultivators come from Tianyi. Naturally, in the Juyo land far away from Tianyi, the chance of encountering evil cultivators will be smaller. Okay, I understand, Xiu nodded, looked at Zuyun with a puzzled expression, and said, what about you? Are you leaving too? Zuyun was stunned and said with a smile, you have to leave after all. Even if you don't leave the Xianguang sect, you will go to the fairy world one day, right? Xiu lowered her head slightly and stopped talking. After a few breaths, she spoke and said, Zuyun, can I ask you something? Say it, I'll do my best and I won't shirk it. Those monks are leaving, and I want to prepare more pills for them. But you also know that there is still a shortage of pills in the immortal light section. Then I will refine more elixirs in the next few days and bring all the elixirs in the sect to my house. In the next few days, Zuyun stopped going out and concentrated on refining the elixir. With his attainments in alchemy, plus the burning sky flame, it was easy for him to make intermediate and advanced elixirs. Almost every cultivator who left took with him an elixir of excellent quality that matched their realm. These cultivators were all grateful. Finally, I'm done. After sending these cultivators away, Ergu's hands had completely recovered. He had not come to Zuyun recently, but found a sword cultivator in the Xianguang sect to ask him for sword skills. Zuyun took the time to enter the world of the universe. Master, have you refined the elixir? Yesuan Hua was covered in dust and bloodshot, you came at the right time. Zuyun laughed and said, isn't this something that can't be helped? Okay, I need to take a good rest. Don't forget to thank my eldest disciple. After that, he pointed at the general crossing tribulation period. Zuyun remembered that he was the leader of a group of cultivators. After bowing his hands to express his gratitude, Zuyun said dissatisfiedly, Master, I am the eldest disciple, right? You. Yasuan Hua said with a displeased face, other disciples serve tea and water to the master, and you? You still need me to serve you. Zuyun touched the back of his head and smiled embarrassedly. Okay, Yasuan Hua also smiled and waved his hand, Master knows that you have important things to do, otherwise, you would not ask for medicine for the tribulation period for no reason. However, Master has something to say, I don't know if I should say it or not. Zuyun's expression suddenly became serious, and he said, Master, please speak.